All right, good morning, y'all. We are currently at the National Center for Atmospheric Research, and it's not because I am particularly interested in weather. This is going to be a starting point for today's fun. We're gonna be spending some time in the Flatirons today, getting a little scrambling in. Admittedly, this isn't a place I've spent as much time in or explored as much as I would have liked to. So today we're gonna try and change some of that. Like I said, we're gonna be getting in some scrambling today, some class 4, maybe some class 5 if I really mess up and take a line I shouldn't. So I'm gonna start at the Regency, make my way up to Royal Arch. After that, it's Anomaly. And then the last piece of rock is Amoeboid or something like that. I'm sure I'm absolutely butchering this. And there are some locals right now who are just sitting there screaming at me. But in my defense, it is a very strange looking word. It's really dark right now. I'm just kind of meandering down the road, blinded by this flash. So we're gonna cut this short. And I'll talk to you guys more once it finally gets light outside. So today is not only going to involve some route finding on the actual rock, getting to the rock itself and making sure you're starting at the right spot is its own little challenge too. It would be an absolute miracle if I end up following everything to a T. So I'm anticipating some detours and some backtracking is likely today. So I found what I believe to be the proper starting point for this route. Like I said, this piece of rock is called the Regency, and this route is the Northern Rib. If followed correctly, it's supposed to be somewhere like high class 4, low class 5. So I'm gonna throw on my climbing shoes and we're gonna get after this. Okay, so we made it up to the top of the Regency, and I'll just go ahead and say that I can 100% confirm I was definitely not on the north rib or whatever it's called. I was somewhere in between. Had a few spots where I just kind of sat there and thought for a few minutes, collected myself, and then, we kept moving on up. This is technically the summit right there, that little point. I'm not gonna top out because I'm moving much slower than I thought. Over there, you can see right over there, that's the Royal Arch, so that's up next. So we're gonna go snag that and then keep moving. So I just made it through that tiny little cave, and we're now at the base of the Royal Arch right here, I believe. Just need to head up there. It's like a little extra bit of a climb because I'm further down than like what you technically need to be just to connect these. So I'll have like, they call it a Flatironette, is what they called it on a mountain project. I'll climb this little Flatironette and then we'll make it up the actual arch. kind of top of the arch. Climb down a little bit because it's not a very comfy place to hang out. We're pretty much here. And that spot right over there, that's the top of the Regency. That's where I just was. Well, not necessarily up there, but close to it. Okay, so just finished up the Royal Arch, which was a lot of fun, by the way. The holds are great. It wasn't that hard of climbing, but the exposure was definitely there. And it's just it's a cool thing. You like see people down below you. There's people taking pictures of you and stuff. You kind of feel like a celebrity. You feel cooler than what you actually are. So I soaked that up for a second. So I changed out my climbing shoes, thank God, because they were killing me. And now I'm on my way to the next rock of the day, which is called Anomaly. And I do not remember the name of this route. It's basically directly south of the base of Royal Arch. And thankfully, there's a pretty well-worn social trail. So I'm just following this and hopefully it takes me there. I'm feeling good right now. I feel like I needed that Royal Arch climb just because after the first one, the Regency or whatever, I'll be honest, my confidence wasn't at an all-time high. I made it through it, but it was one of those things where I haven't been doing enough of this. And so that one was maybe right on the line of what I should be doing. And so it felt good to get on Royal Arch and just kind of breeze through it and have fun with it and not be as worried the entire time. Turns out that trail I was following wasn't really going to take me to the right spot. So I did end up having to do some bushwhacking, if you call it that, I guess. But we've arrived to our next rock of the day. This one behind me is called Anomaly. This is supposed to be a pretty short climb. I think it's just a couple hundred feet and then it's a walk off up at the top. And it should spit us out right at the next rock, which is the one that I can't pronounce. All right, so I'm gonna throw my climbing shoes back on and we'll get after this one. Okay, here we go, heading up Anomaly. And I did figure out that this route is called the East Face. It's the only one, and it's not really much of a route. It's basically just pick a line and go. Rock! Thanks. Okay, so just made it to the top of Anomaly. It was a quick, fun little climb. Similar to like Royal Arch. It was not as challenging. There were a lot of great holds. So it was just fun, man. I'm really having a good time today. And so last rock on the docket today is the Amoeboid. Or Amoebud, or whatever it is, I don't know. I kind of heard some people talking earlier, and it felt like they said the word amoeba, and that made me think that maybe it's related to that, but I don't know. It definitely has a D on the end, so I don't know what that shakes out to. Man, sometimes I do stuff, and as I'm doing it, or after the fact, I just think, man, that was like the most unathletic thing I've ever done in my life. And then without fail, I'll do something later on that tops it. And that little down climb right there was one of those moments. I'm glad no one was around to witness me do that, because I'm sure they would be cringing. Okay, final rock of the day. We're making our way up Amoeboid, and this is the Buckets route. And you can see why I just called that. It's because of these big bucket holes you're looking at in front of me. Big kind of watermark you're supposed to stay on either side of. So I'm going to do my best to do that. We'll get to the top of this thing. So I'm pretty sure this is basically top of the climbing on this route. Looks like we just kind of go up through there, and then I think it walks off to the trail. So I was right, that was the end of the climbing. There's just a little, I don't even know if you call it a chimney, a little section you have to climb up, and then it levels out to where we are now. And man, what another really fun route. Same as, you know, the previous two, not super difficult, good holds the whole way, rock was solid, like it was just fun. I don't know how else to put it. If you are a seriously seasoned climber, you may not find that as enjoyable. Maybe a little too low key for you, but for someone like myself, it's honestly just about perfect. To me, today just felt like a proper adventure. I don't really know how else to say it. Sounds kind of lame and cheesy, but that's like the only word that comes to mind. There's a certain amount of exposure, a certain amount of danger, and there was also a fair amount of uncertainty, which is one thing that can be lacking today when it comes to doing things in the outdoor space, because there's so much beta, there's so much information out there, which don't get me wrong, I think that's a good thing, but it can take something away from the experience as a whole. And I think having to work through things on your own, having aspects of the route or objective, whatever you have planned, that are unknown, that you're figuring out on the fly, I think that's what makes it memorable, and that's what makes it a more enjoyable experience overall. So all that to say, yeah, I'm just super stoked on today, and I guess that's all there really is to it. I am going to wrap up the video here because I don't really think the trek back down to the car is going to be that interesting. I'll link back up with the Mesa Trail, and then I'll make my way back to my car at the Atmospheric Research Center. For me, today felt pretty manageable as someone who doesn't really climb that much. If you're looking for a fun little link up out in the Flatirons, I'd highly recommend this route. With that being said, make sure you do your own research before, and make sure it's something that you are going to be comfortable with once you get there, because it's one of those things, once you start climbing up, it becomes much harder to turn around. I'm not someone who spends much time in a climbing gym, although I'm working on changing that, but I am comfortable with exposure. It doesn't really bother me. I don't really get rattled looking down or anything like that. I don't have a problem with heights, and I'd like to think that I have a decent eye as far as route finding goes. And like I said earlier, other than the first route in a couple spots, and that was just because I probably got off of the route, I felt comfortable with everything today, just doing it in climbing shoes. If you have any questions at all, just drop them down in the comments below. I'll 100% answer you. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not already, and we'll catch you next time.